Hey, what's up, classes? It's Mr. Hayes here for a video on indirect characterization, or the STEAL acronym. It's one you might be familiar with. We went over it briefly back in September with Junior. You also might have a lesson on it in the back of your memory bank from 6th and 7th grade. This is a really important lesson early on in a book, especially with books that are so focused on one primary character, like our hero's journey books. Not only do you get to know that hero and figure out more about them right now, but infer forward what challenges or what insecurities they're going to have to tackle as the book moves along. So indirect characterization is boiled down to an acronym called STEAL, which is speech, thoughts, effect on others, actions, and looks. Let's take these one at a time here, because I'm going to have you do this on your hero in your hero's journey slideshow. And I'm going to model with this first with T'Challa, our hero as a class, and show you what I'm looking for that slide. So let's take it one at a time here. We start with speech. Speech is what the character says out loud. It's the quoted words. Not only what the character says to other characters, but how they say it. So what do they say, but also are they saying it emphatically? Are they saying it with a whisper? Are they saying it confidently? Are they yelling it? Those things can often reveal a little bit about their personality and their confidence too. Thoughts. This is what the character says in his or her own head. Effect on others is E. So what effect does your hero have on other characters in the book? You might have to infer that at this point because we're early on, but you might have some evidence already. Actions. What does the character do? How do they behave? And what does that reveal about who the character is and what the character values? And then looks. Sometimes an author will invent a hero who looks a certain way because it matches their personality, or dresses a certain way because it reveals a little bit about them. Thinking off the top of my head, the way that the characters in Abnegation in Divergent dress and how it reveals how they don't want to stand out, how they want to blend in, and the selflessness that's supposed to be attached to that Abnegation faction. We want to focus on where the hero is now in your book, as it says here, and then eventually what are they like as they begin to change and start to develop a new identity as the book goes on and then move through the steps. So basically your notes can be a combination of what the hero's doing right now, who the hero is at this moment, but also what they might be, what they're capable of, okay? Because indirect characterization can involve inferencing. That's why it's indirect. The author doesn't tell you it word for word. You have to come up with it on your own. Okay, so I'm going to move over here now to my hero's journey slideshow. You're going to focus in on slide number 7, the orange slide. That's the STEAL slide. This far left category is blank for you right now. I would challenge you to add S, T, E, A, and L and try to include one bullet point, both in terms of text evidence and what it reveals for each category of STEAL. So try to come up with something that the character says, thinks, effect on others, actions, and looks to complete today's note-taking. I think that's within the realm of possibility, even just 50 pages into your book. So for text evidence, it's going to be hard for me for T'Challa because I don't have the whole script in front of me right now, so the direct quotes are going to be difficult. So I'm going to do my best to kind of paraphrase and summarize. You'll get the gist of how to do this. But I am looking for text evidence and direct quotes for this column here for you in your book. So for says, one thing I really remember him speaking out loud and yelling this and showing a lot of growth in this moment is when he yelled at Zuri and said, "I am your king now." This is when Zuri wanted to hold back the information about T'Challa's father, and T'Challa demanded he has that information, as hard as it was to hear. So I'm going to include that as my text evidence, with exclamation point there. And I'm just going to kind of briefly just summarize when that moment happened. T'Challa demands that Zuri tell him the truth about his father. What does it reveal about the character? Well, T'Challa is in a moment of crisis. After failing to bring Claw back to Wakanda, this comment to Zuri is both a sign of frustration, anger, but also T'Challa trying to exert his power and will as the new king. So it's both anger about failing on his mission, but also him trying to tell Zuri and kind of himself that I am the boss now. I know my dad was an incredible ruler, but I am just as capable of stepping into his shoes. And he wanted to show Zuri that I'm the king now. Don't think of T'Chaka as the king. Think of me as the king. So what about thinks? Well, this is going to have to be kind of an inference because, we're not inside of T'Challa's brain at all times. But there's a lot of things that he does, both in terms of facial expressions and also inferences I can make just as an educated viewer to figure out what he's thinking at certain moments. And one thing that we talked about as a theme throughout is T'Challa always trying to live up to the king his father was and prove he can step into his shoes. Not only that, but he's unsure about Wakanda's place in the world. Got Nakia, who we trust, that says we should share resources with the world. Eventually, we know that he comes around on that. Even Killmonger, as an antagonist, believes that too, and that starts to seep into T'Challa's brain a little bit. So, what does it reveal about the character? Well, this reveals that T'Challa is deeply insecure. And doesn't know how to be an effective ruler. Deep down, he knows that Wakanda should be less selfish and use their resources for good around the globe. But he doesn't know if when he should act on this instinct, mostly because his father never did. Even though he feels like his father made some mistakes now that he knows more about, leaving Killmonger back in Oakland and some of the decisions he made, he's still, it's hard for him to deviate too far from the type of ruler his dad was. He thought of him as this great king for so long. It's hard to just completely repress that all of a sudden. So he's not sure what to do. He's torn. He has an internal conflict on how to lead Wakanda into the future. What about effect on others? Well, we know that he battles a little bit with being almost too good of a person, having too big of a heart. I think Nakia certainly sees that in the scene when Killmonger takes over and she admits that she loves T'Challa, admits to Okoye, is there anything that we can do? The effect on others that T'Challa has on Nakia, at least, is one of love and care and someone with a big heart. So, effect on Nakia, T'Challa is a loving, caring person who wants to help as many people as possible. And what does it reveal about the character? Well, Nakia knows T'Challa as well as anyone. So her instincts about him are likely accurate. Just gonna make this a little bit smaller here so it all fits. Actions. What does he actually do? Well, one thing that I thought was really important in revealing who T'Challa is that he was willing to take on Killmonger. Killmonger came in late after the selection day or challenge day, you could say. M'Baku did it the right way. Killmonger was late. So I think T'Challa, you could argue, even though Killmonger was royalty, could have said, it's too late. I'm not taking you on. I'm the king. That ship has sailed. Instead, he felt like he had to prove himself even more. So he is willing to take on all challenges and show his people he is brave. Just as when he takes on Killmonger, even after Challenge Day. It shows T'Challa does not take the easy way out, but instead wants to show both himself and his people he is the right man to lead the country. And then looks, This is pretty obvious with the Black Panther suit and the superpowers attached to it. Not to mention he's in really good physical condition. And he wants to portray himself as physically up for the task just as much as mentally. Now, it's certainly proven with the way that he took down M'Baku in an initial challenge. Killmonger, someone who's trained in that type of violent force just as much as anyone. So he clearly lost to Killmonger in that battle, but still held his own and still showed that he is fully capable of taking on those challenges. So this could be what your steel slide looks like by the end of the day today. Of course, you can keep adding to it as you read. You may also be adding to your hero's journey slides as well, the purple slides. You should have some information here for the ordinary world and the status quo, but your hero might be moving on already. The call to adventure, meeting of the mentor, that crossing the threshold moment into a special world. That could already be happening in your book. It's entirely possible. So keep filling in these slides as you go through the hero's journey. If you notice step 2 has just happened, go to this third slide, try to answer these questions as best you can, what it reveals with some text evidence. So you're responsible for both the purple slides and also now your orange steel slide. So just to repeat, I'd like you to have information in each of the 5 steel categories. You're going to set up STEAL and fill in a little bit for each as you read.